Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name's Mike, and in this tutorial, I'll show you step-by-step how to build a beautiful professional website with WordPress, even if you have no experience and no prior understanding at all. This is a full tutorial for beginners, and I guarantee if you watch and understand this entire video, then by the end of this video, you'll have all the information you need to make your own website for just a couple dollars, which means two things. One, if you are otherwise considering hiring somebody to make a website, this could save you thousands and thousands of dollars. Or two, if you are looking to become a consultant and make websites for other clients, this could earn you thousands and thousands of dollars. So whatever your reason might be for making a website, whether you are a student making a little portfolio, whether you're an artist, whether you're in e-commerce trying to get into dropshipping or anything like that, or if you have a regular brick and mortar business and you want to move it online, there are tons and tons of ways to make a website and tons of reasons you would want to make a website. But the way we're going to do it in this video is one of the most popular ways to do it on the entire internet. We'll be using WordPress, which, as I said, powers over 1/3 of the internet out there. These are big websites from Sony Music, as you can see right here, to TechCrunch, to even the official website of Sweden. WordPress powers a lot of big websites out there, and you might wonder, why do so many people choose WordPress? And why would we do it in this video? Well, one of the main things is that WordPress is open source, which means it's free to use. You can just use WordPress. You don't have to pay anybody. You don't have to worry about anything like that. And secondly, because it's open source and because it's so big, you have a ton of integrations out there, from Facebook Pixels to Google Analytics to any big name out there most likely works very well with WordPress. And on top of that, because it's so big and is open source, you also have a ton of theme options. So you have thousands of different themes to choose from, both free and paid ones. You have lots of different plugins and apps and integrations. And so it just really works well across any style of website across the entire internet. So that's why I wanted to make this tutorial in WordPress for this video, so that I figured most people out there, no matter what you're doing, WordPress should be a great way to do this. Now, before we get into the very first step of this tutorial, I want to point out that this is entirely free information. Here at Santrel, we believe in free information, and so we will not at any point in this video try to upsell any courses. We do not and never will sell a course, and so you can trust that everything we're putting in this video is everything we think you need to know. And this is a complete guide to making a website. So with that being said, if you appreciate this video at any point, please go down and do click the like button. It really helps the channel out a lot. Now, getting into the first step, you just open up any browser you want. Everything we're doing is online, so you don't have to worry about what kind of computer you have, Mac versus Windows versus Chromebook. It'll work on all of those. So just open up, I use Google Chrome, but any browser will do. And what we want to do is go to santrelmedia.com/hostinger. And so I mentioned that WordPress was free, but there are two things that you're going to have to pay for that are outside of the actual website. One of them is your host, which is essentially where your website's saved. You can imagine it like a Word document. You can't just X out of it. You have to save it somewhere. And so you save it on a host. And Hostinger, we think, is one of the most secure, one of the fastest, and one of the most affordable ones, which is why we think they're a really great option for anybody new to making websites. And they're just a very easy recommendation. But the other thing you'll have to pay for, which you don't actually have to pay for if you get Hostinger, they bundle it in, but it would be a domain. And you can buy a domain anywhere else, from Squarespace or Google Domains, or there's tons of different places out there. But like I said, doing it directly through Hostinger, because they bundle in with a lot of the packages, they give it to you for free. You don't have to worry about any of that. So the first thing we want to do is actually go to Start Now, as you can see right there, and we have a couple plans. Now you can choose one of these three plans, but what I would recommend doing is going to WordPress hosting, because we're obviously working with a WordPress website, and you're getting some extra packages here. Now, among these, you can look down here, and they show you a lot of differences. This might seem intimidating, so I'll just give you my general recommendation. You could read through these and look at how much storage you think you're going to need, but I would generally say the second one is probably the best for the most people out there. The first one's great, and it is more affordable. So, I mean, if you're really tight on a budget, that's definitely a great option. But I would say if you think that you're going to use any more storage than 30 gigabytes, which isn't especially likely unless you have a lot of videos, but there are other things, like you do get a free email, which is nice. You do get the unlimited databases. You get Jetpack in there. You get a lot of other things added in. And so for that reason, I think that this is a better option for a lot of people. That's what I'm going to go with in this video. But don't worry, whichever one you choose, the next step is going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to select this one right here, and then it's going to ask you, for how long do you want to choose your period, right? So you can choose 1 month, and that's what I'm going to do in this video, because this is just a tutorial, right? Like, I'm not actually using using this website long term. But I would say for most people, or what I do on most of my websites, is I find the best balance to be around 24 months. That way, I don't have to worry about, remembering a payment anytime soon. I don't have to worry about, if my website's not doing well. A lot of blogs and things like that do tend to take 12 months to 2 years until they actually start picking up a lot of traffic. And so paying for 2 years is a great way to commit yourself to really focusing on building your website. Of course, if you know it's going to be around for 4 years, that's an even better deal. You're saving a lot of money there. But at least for me, that's a really long commitment. I usually go with 24 months. But for this video, I'm going with 1 month, and then we're going to create our account. You could do this by just connecting your Facebook or your GitHub or your Google account, or what I'm going to do is just type in my email. Okay, and then once you do that, you're going to click on Start Now, and it's going to walk us through a couple different questions here. And realistically, none of these questions matter that much, so you can skip it if you want. That's what I'm going to do, but otherwise it might help to guide you for future reference and show you more relevant things. Okay, and then it's going to ask you to create an account for WordPress. And remember that you have two separate accounts here. You have WordPress, which is your content management system, which is where all of your website's going to be, all of your files are going to be, everything related to your website is there, but it's just being saved on Hostinger. So Hostinger is a separate account. So for that reason, I would like to use a separate password here. That's just generally what I recommend. Some people use the same password, and that's completely fine, but just keep in mind security is very important with your website. So then we will click on Continue, and it's going to ask you which look you like. Now I'm going to say it's really important here that you actually skip this, because later in the video, I will show you where you can find a much larger selection of different templates and different themes that will look a lot nicer. So we have some options right here. We can buy a new domain or use an existing domain. If you already have an existing domain, we would already know, right? So you would get one from like Squarespace or GoDaddy or any of the other sites out there, like I said. But because our plan does come with a free domain, I'm going to buy a domain, and the domain we're going to choose could just be anything. Maybe it's going to be Santrel Santrelsurfing.com. We could do something like that. We'll say search and see if that is actually taken. Probably not. It looks like it is available, so I'm going to say I buy it right now. And we can choose 2 years, or you can add 3 years, 1 year, whatever you want to do. And something I highly recommend is the Whois privacy protection. Personally, I think especially for a business, it's really, really important that you go and add that Whois privacy. It's $10 per year. I think it's more than worth it. And so that's what I'm going to do right there. Now, I'm actually only getting this for 1 year. You're still saving 30%. You're getting a really good deal on 1 year, actually a better deal in 1 year than you would on 2 or 3. So I generally recommend doing that. Now I'm going to complete the payment right here. And you might notice that I did have to pay for this. The reason I had to pay for the domain and it wasn't actually free is because I chose the 1 month plan as opposed to the full year or the 2 year plan. They don't want you paying $15 for 1 month and getting a free domain for a year. So that's the reason. If you chose anything other than the month by month payment, which like I said, I did recommend that, then you would be getting a free domain. I got punished here for not doing that, but it makes sense because this is just a tutorial. So let's go to the next step. And then it's going to ask for some primary details so you can complete the domain registration and actually have that domain in your possession. And then once you finish registration, it's going to take a second to actually register the domain. You'll probably have to go over to your email and actually go and click confirm that you actually will register with that email. So again, make sure you're using an email that you do actually have access to. All right, and then you'll just click the little purple button and it's going to initialize setup. And we're back. It finished this little thing. It probably took about 1 minute. It wasn't anywhere near 3. And you have a couple options here. You can go to the control panel. This is on Hostinger, and this is where you can restore backups and enable SSL and things like that. And so we will definitely be doing that. But then after that, I want to show you guys how to actually go into the WordPress dashboard. There are 2 ways to access it, and this is not the main way I would do that. I'll show you the other way that I normally do it. So we are going to manage site first of all. This is Hostinger. And like I said, we want to set up a couple things before we build the website. The first one is that I do recommend having something like backups so that they're saved and that you don't have to worry about if anything goes wrong on your website. You can just go in here and restore yesterday's backup or the one from the day before. It's something that gives me a lot of peace of mind. And honestly, I have used it so many times. So if we simply scroll down, you'll see that we do have an option for backups. If we click on backups, it'll say right now that we don't have any backups. It's going to be generated automatically. And I'm going to click on add daily backups. This is something that, again, you do have to pay for. Unfortunately, a lot of things with Hostinger, you have to add a little, like an extra $1 a month. But this is something that I really think is definitely worth it. I'm going to do 1 month of this. I'm going to complete the payment. And this way, every day, it's going to save my website offline. So that if anything ever happens, I can go in here and just restore yesterday's backup and my website is back up and running because otherwise you never know if you update a plugin and something went wrong with that plugin, then your whole website could be down and you would otherwise have to build it from scratch again. So this saves me a ton of trouble, definitely worth $1 every month. Now, the second thing I want to do before we get into our WordPress dashboard is actually enable SSL. And SSL is going to, without getting too complicated, it's essentially the way to make your website secure so that visitors know that they're on your actual website, that it's secure, it's real, and if they're putting payment information in, they'll know that it is encrypted and other people cannot see their payment information. Super important, and it's going to show you this little lock icon on the top of your browser. So the way to do this, it's very easy actually. If you just go down here to Advanced on the left side and scroll down, you'll see SSL. We're going to click on that, and the plan that we have should come with SSL, but again, I chose the 1 month one, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was not included here. We're going to click Install SSL. It says it's installing, and then it'll be done in just a second. So honestly, like I said, it's incredibly easy to do. You don't have to worry about anything after that, and it really helps your website a lot, or especially when viewers go there. Now, the next thing we want to do, like I said, if we go back to the other tab, and you can see Manage WordPress is an option here. Or the better way to do this, or the more common way I access it, is if you go to your domain, which is Santrel Surfing. It's santrelsurfing.com, and then you just type /wp-admin. And this will take you to the WordPress sign-in for your website. And this is the best way to log in. Like I said, it just takes you right to WordPress, and we'll type in our email. All right, and then here we go. So once again, you're getting a little bit of an intimidating interface here, but I will demystify this. I promise it's not hard to use. I'll show you where everything is. And this is going to be the rest of the tutorial. This will be everything you need to know in the future, how to manage your website. You're doing everything in here. Hosting it was how we got it set up, how we got the domain, how we got going, but WordPress right here is going to be where you do absolutely everything with your website. So just a quick overview. I'll dive into each of these throughout this video, but just so you have a general idea of what things are and where they are, you'll see across the top, these are just basic, like if you want to visit your site, you can hover over the domain and click on Visit Site. And of course, right now we do have a website. It's just the default theme. There's nothing there. It's just a basic template. But if we go back, next to that, we'll see notifications, if somebody left comments, things like that. We can go to New, and you can add a new post, a new photo. You can add a new page. Pages and posts, I'll talk about how they're actually different. You can add a new user. So if you have employees who are going to be accessing this, you can add them right there. Or of course, we could add a new form because we have the Forms plugin. Now, that won't always be there. I'll show you how to get different plugins. Plugins are incredibly important as well. We can go to Insights. We can see all these different things. These up here are actually part of our plugins, and they might be a little functionality like WP Forms is a plugin. And when you get the plugin, it gives you this little access feature right up top. And then on the left side, this is really what I do most of my work with. So you can go to Dashboard, which is going to show you just by default some basic stuff, some updates. They might tell you like, hey, there's a new version of WordPress available, different things like that. You'll see a lot of that right here. Below that, within Home, you'll see Updates, and this one, again, is really, really important that you come back here. They'll have little notifications like this little red number. That's going to show up next to Updates probably about once a week. I wouldn't be surprised, depending on how many plugins you have, it'll say there are updates, and when you get in here, you can go and update individual plugins or themes, and make sure your website is always secure like that. Then below that, we have Jetpack. That is, again, just a plugin. Don't worry about that one. I'm actually going to get rid of that. And you know what, before we continue on, I'm going to show you how to get rid of some of these plugins because it comes with a lot that you might not need right away. So if we go down here to Plugins and click on Plugins, it will show you everything that is already installed on here. So going down, you can see we have all-in-one SEO, all-in-one WordPress migration. Like we have got probably too many right here, and we're not going to use most of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all the ones that I don't think we need, and I don't think we need this one, this one. I can keep Jetpack for now, but I don't think I need this one. Opt-in Monster, Forms, I'm not going to use any forms. And so we can get rid of all of these just by going to Bulk Actions and first deactivate them. Click on Apply. And then once we have them all deactivated, we can go to click on Inactive, and it shows us all of the inactive ones. These are all the ones that we just deactivated. We can select all plugins, and then here we can go and delete them. So we're going to click Delete. Click on Apply, and we'll say, yes, we are okay with deleting them. And then that's going to really clean up our dashboard quite a bit. A lot of these things are going to disappear as you're seeing across the top, already not there. And then all we have is just, if we go back to all, really the only plugin we kept was Jetpack because that does help to speed up your website and do things like that. And so Jetpack is included. We'll dive into what Jetpack actually is and what it does later in the video. But continuing on with our dashboard, if we go to post, you'll see this is going to be where you have different blog posts, different timely articles, things that might not be a cornerstone thing. They might not be like a home page or an about page, but rather they'll be like an article that you wrote. We have media. This is going to be if you have photos that are used in different parts of your website or files or music or anything like that, it'll be saved right here. Pages is going to be essentially, like I said, if you have privacy policy, a home page, an about page, all of that. And we're actually going to get a template in just a second that will populate a lot of these and save a lot of work for you. We can go to comments, and this is where you can moderate a lot of comments. If people comment on your posts, you'll see them right here. And keep in mind, sometimes you do have some spam comments that you'll have to go and delete or filter out or unapprove, and you can do all of that right here. Then below that, we have appearance. This is where we choose a theme, and that's really the first step right now. So before we get a template, we have to go and choose the theme. So if you click on appearance, by default, it shows you a couple themes that came with your website, but we can very easily get new ones. So if we click on add new, you'll see that we have a lot of different options, and tons of these are free. There are thousands of free ones and paid ones, and you can really dig through a lot of different templates, a lot of different themes, and find exactly the best one for you. But keep in mind, really what most people use is Astra. That's a really, really popular one, and so that's what I'm going to use in this video. We'll click on install. It's going to install Astra. And remember, there are 2 steps to this. You have to install it, and then you have to activate it. All right, and there we go. It is now installed. We don't actually have to click anywhere else. We can just click on activate right here. Sometimes I forget where the blue buttons come up, but it shows up right there. And now that is the new one that we actually have. That is our current theme. And so just to show you guys, if we go up to visit site and we click on that, you'll see that, again, it looks very, very different. You might worry that it's not an improvement, but I promise it definitely is. And if we go back, we can actually get an entire template right now. This is really cool, and it's really easy to do. Now, if there's only one piece of advice you get out of this entire video, it's this right here. I highly recommend, if you get the Astra theme, you go in here and you get a full template. When I first started making websites years ago, I didn't always realize that there were templates available, and a lot of times I would make websites, and you spend so much more time building page by page by page when you can just go and install a template, and somebody else already made a lot of the website, and then you can just go and change the photos, change where things are a little bit, and you have your full website ready to go, and it saved you a ton of time and a ton of work. So I highly recommend getting this. Now, if you go to the Astra, if you just click on appearance, you go to Astra options, you can actually go to install importer plugin. So we're going to click on that. It's a little plugin that's going to make it very, very easy to essentially get a template and install it on your website. This is going to set up pages, it's going to set up posts, it's going to set up fonts, everything you really need to get started and have a website that looks a lot better than what it currently does. And so like I said, if you just open a new tab and go to your domain, you're going to see that right now there's nothing there. It's going to be a lot of work to build a website that looks really nice unless you go and install a plugin or a template. So what pops up next is this page right here, and it's going to ask us what our page builder is going to be. These are 3 great options here, but I always use Elementor. I have a full tutorial on how to use all the little things in Elementor. I'll show you a lot in this video, but the good news is if you choose to use Elementor, which I highly recommend, after this video, you can see even more details about some more nitty-gritty things that you can do with Elementor and Elementor Pro. And Elementor, the basic one, as you might assume, is actually also free to use. So far, Astra is free, the template's free, the builder's free, a lot of the plugins are free. Like, there's a lot of things with WordPress that you don't actually have to pay for. So that'll bring you to this right here. And there are a lot of great options here for what the website can actually look like. And there are premium ones, which you obviously have to pay some fee for, or there are free ones as well for the full template. And so what I want to see is actually just the free ones. We can go up here and click on free. And these are all the free ones out there. But keep in mind, you don't have to worry about what photos are there. Like, this has plants, but I can just replace those with surfboards, right? So anyway, let's just say we want to go with maybe an outdoor one. I really like this one, so I'm going to put a little heart on that. Maybe I want to compare that later on. And there's a lot of really great options here, even just with the free ones. If you're doing like an online store, anything like that, a paid one might look a little bit nicer, a little bit more unique. But again, I'm just going to use this free one. I really like this one right here. And you can actually see it shows you a lot. I think there's actually a parallax effect as well. So if we go to preview site, yeah, look at that. As you scroll, the photo stays right there. Goes like that. I think this looks really nice. That's exactly what I'm looking for this surfing website. So I'm just going to go and say, yeah, I really like this one. So we can import the complete site, or you can just import one page at a time, which is another great thing. If you find out later on you want another about page from some different template, you can go and just install or import the about page. But I'm actually going to do the entire site because I like what they have right here. And so here, they're going to ask us one last step, a couple extra things right here. So we're going to say, yep, ready to go. We are a WordPress beginner. We are building it for myself, and we're going to say next. And then once you click start importing, it takes a few minutes until it actually imports everything because obviously it's importing 6 different web pages or 5 different web pages here and a lot of photos and fonts and media. So it just takes a second until this actually happens. All right, and there we go. It was successfully imported, which is great news. And we can go to visit the site. But remember, I just want to open right here. This is what it looked like before. Now let's see what it looked like after. Go to visit site. And this is Santrel Surfing. This is my domain. It now looks like this. We now have things. We've got an About tab. We've got a Services tab. Don't worry about this little gray bar up here. This is only there because I'm signed in to my WordPress account. Anybody else visiting would not see that. But you'll see right here, we've got a lot of great stuff. Like it looks like a full normal website, just not related to my subject. So all we have to do is go in here and change a lot of that stuff, and you're ready to go. You don't have to set up the tabs. You don't have to set up new pages. You don't have to do any of that because this saved us a lot of time. So going back to the first tab, our WordPress dashboard right here, we can close out of that. And now we're pretty much ready to go. We're ready to start customizing this website. So like I said, from dashboard, we now have a much cleaner layout. So far we did that. We installed a theme, a plugin for our builder, and we installed a template. 4 big things right there that are going to make this, a much more streamlined process. So one quick thing I want to point out before we actually go into building the website and really customizing that, I want to go down and touch on a quick little couple settings that I recommend changing or at least double checking before you actually go and continue. So the first thing is the name of your website showing up right there. I don't want it to be that, like maybe if you're like something that you want the .com that makes sense, but I'm going to say Santrel Surfing. That's just what we call it. And then our little tagline, we can say a surfing blog. Maybe it's a surfing blog, or maybe we sell lessons, whatever it is. I'm just going to have a little tagline there. And then you'll also notice right here, quick little subtle thing, it says HTTP, and it does not have an S there. And because we paid for SSL, or because we have SSL, we didn't have to pay extra for that. Because we have it, we can actually go and add an S right here, and we are going to go down and click save. But keep in mind, when you click save, make sure you know what your password is so you can sign back into WordPress. It's going to make you sign back in right now when you click save changes because technically you added that S, so it's going to just make you do that again. All right, so there we go. We're going to sign in again. And once you're logged in, now we have HTTPS, which is great, which means that if we go over here, it is now a secure website, which is great. Again, we want to have that little lock. It means a lot to people when they're visiting your website. I check that all the time, every website I go to. If it says not secure on the top, I don't trust the website because that's a standard best practice that everybody on the internet really should be doing. So going down, other than that, really not a whole lot of settings that I think you need to change. You can check the date format and the time format. But really, if you go down to writing, this is the only other thing that I think matters. If you go, or sorry, not writing, if you go to permalinks, this is going to be when you make new pages, new blog posts, how is it actually going to show up? So right now, a weird custom structure I don't think makes sense. Instead, I think the post name is probably going to be the easiest way to do that. So if I make a blog post and I title this Surfing for Beginners, we don't want it to show some kind of weird thing. We just want it to be santrelsurfing.com/surfing for beginners. That way, when you're navigating the interface, it just feels so much more natural on the website. I think it's a big plus. I think a lot of people should be changing to that. But otherwise, you can dig through the settings. We'll dive into that later on in the video. These are the fundamentals that I think you need to change as early as possible. Now let's go to post and pages. Like I said, post is going to be essentially any blog post. Our theme that we imported, our template that we imported, did not come with any blog posts. So we'll have to make some of our own later on in the video. But pages, remember, we did have those that actually were imported. So we had the ones that started, right? Like this one started with, I think it was privacy policy and sample page. Those just came by default with WordPress. But the other 5 that we have right here were the ones that we imported with the template. And you can tell because they say Elementor next to them, and these do not. So I'm going to get rid of these. I don't need the sample page. I don't need the privacy policy right now. We could use it if we wanted, but it's not going to look as good. So the ones that we do have, these are all them right here, and we can actually go and edit any of them. Let's start off with the home page. The way you want to do that is hover over home, as you can see right here, and click on Edit with Elementor. You could also click on regular edit, and I'm just going to show you that really quick because there are a couple extra features in here. If you just click on regular edit, it'll show you, let's close out of that, it'll show you that you can't actually edit it without opening Elementor because it was built with Elementor, but it does show you a couple things on the right side. And these things will be things like if it's visible to the public, or if it's a private one, you can make it private, or you can make it password protected. And that's if you're making a new page that you're not quite ready to share yet, but it's in the making, you can make it a private or password protected one. Additionally, you could change the permalink. This is our homepage, so it doesn't actually have a permalink. And you can change things like the featured image, which means when somebody searches in Google and they find this, some posts and some pages will have a featured image showing up there. And of course, you can choose if you allow comments or not. This is a page, a homepage, doesn't really make sense to have comments, but that's what I wanted to show you right there. Some quick little things, quick little settings about privacy and visibility. We can click on edit with Elementor here, or like I said, if we just go back, you can click on Edit with Elementor right here. So Edit with Elementor. All right, that brings us to a third interface, which fortunately is not like the WordPress dashboard. Instead, this is a lot more intuitive, very easy, and this is why we installed Elementor, because this is a simple drag and drop builder that allows us to customize our entire website, make it look really nice, and we don't have to do any kind of coding, we don't have to know anything really. Like, it's really easy and intuitive. So if I want like a heading, if I want text to be like right there, I just click and drag it, and we just added text right there. You can change the color of it, you can do all types of things like that. Very, very easy to do all of that. And so that's why I really like using Elementor when I'm building a page. Now, we'll talk about how to actually build new pages, but because we installed this template, we don't have to add a lot of new stuff. Really, what's more important is editing the stuff that's already there. So what we can do is just double click on anything and you can start editing the text if it's, it's like a text box like this or a heading. So if we could say right here, learn how to surf, maybe that's like our tagline. Learn how to surf, and then right here, maybe this is going to be our title. So Santrel surfing, right? So that is going to be very straightforward. This right here is a button, and of course, another thing you'll notice is on the left side, whatever I click on, we have a lot of settings that show up with that. So on the right side, obviously, this is what our website looks like. It's interactive. You can click on things and edit them. And on the left side, we have some more in-depth settings. So if I want this text, for example, to be a different color, if I want it to have a link hidden in there, so when somebody clicks on it, it opens something else. If I want to do anything like that, you can adjust all of that over on the left side. So if we click on, for example, style, we can change the color of that text, and I can make it literally any color I want. We can type in the HTML code down there, or just click and drag until you see a color that you think looks really nice. Now, I'm going to leave it as white. I think that looks fine. But we can also go over to advanced settings as well and change some of the things with the spacing between different items. So for example, you'll see right here, we have padding and we also have margin. When I was starting out with WordPress, that was very confusing to me, so I want to kind of explain right now what it is. Padding is essentially going to be on the outside, how much of a buffer you have around that text box, whereas margin is going to be how much on the inside. If you want more margin on the inside of this box between the next thing, you would add more of, obviously with margin there, and you won't really notice a difference. They're pretty interchangeable, except when you start having backgrounds on these text boxes, or if you have backgrounds on things around them. Because this is all in one giant strip right here, and I realized I haven't actually explained the general macro concept here. The way this is laid out is in different little strips. So you can see this box right here is all one big strip, and within that, we've got a single row outlined with this gray dot right here, the gray and white dotted line. And then within that row, we've got a text box, we've got a little divider, another text box, and then a button. So everything's in these large strips that you can really arrange. So if I wanted this entire strip to go, I could click on the X button. I don't like that, so we could just undo that by hitting the little undo button. If we go to history, we can actually go and undo that. So if we go back to here, there we go. We undid that little mistake right there, but you get the idea how this is all one big strip that has a single background, and then all these little elements in there don't need individual backgrounds, and that's why we don't have to worry about margin and padding. But going down, you'll see this is another strip right here. This is a little quote thing where we have 3 columns here. You can see one on the left, which just has a little icon there. The middle one has the text, and the right one is just used as a space for nothing really. And when you have 3 columns, you can see that these 3 columns are not actually even. Obviously, this is a lot wider, but you could adjust where they are by hovering on that little divider line and clicking and dragging to adjust the width to whatever makes sense for you. Similarly, down here, you can see this one has a single row or a single column right here, but within that, we've got a little sub 2 columns. And you can actually go on the little grid thing right here And what they did is added an inner section. So inner section within one big section, within this big section, they have another little section that has 2 rows. And so or 2 columns rather. And so that's a great way to have like one solid background, like we have this white background right here. And we have like one thing that spans the whole width of the page, and then 2 little columns underneath that. Usually an intersection is going to be how they do that. I didn't mean to click and drag that, but whatever. Going down, we can see another section right here, and it's really cool with this background, something you might wonder, and if you don't have this on the theme or the template you chose, I'll show you exactly how you set this up. So if we just click on the little 6 dots right there, we can edit this entire section. And as I said, on the left side, we have tons and tons of different things. We've got layout, style, and advanced. So the layout overall is going to be essentially how the image looks, where it's positioned and things like that. And what we have right here, this is called parallax, and I really do like how parallax looks. So we want to make sure that we have a parallax enabled. So what we want to do is actually so if you go over to style, you can go down and see that right now the attachment, which is this photo in the background, is set to fixed. Now, because it's fixed in place, you scroll and it doesn't move on the screen. That's what that means. That's a parallax effect. Now, instead you can have it where it's scroll right now. So as you scroll, it goes with that. Or you can just go to default, which I believe is going to be pretty much the same as scroll right there, which is, by default, we have it set that it's always going to be scroll. So I think fixed looks really cool as you go. Obviously, throughout the entire page, it moves up and down. It is a little trickier if you have text on the right side. You want to make sure that it doesn't blend in too much. And so what they did here is it looks like they added a background overlay. So you can see that the original image, it's kind of hard to see right here, but it looks like it's a little bit lighter on this little image right here versus what you're seeing here. So it looks like they have a black background overlay. So you can see if we just go to background overlay, right now they do have this overlay. So if we made it like really dark, you can see it's obviously darker. You can make it lighter. And so this is going to show you essentially like if you have an image that you want that parallax effect, but for some reason it doesn't contrast enough with the background, you can have a quick little overlay on your background to make it either darker or lighter or any color you want really. So you have that proper contrast and it looks really nice. Now, I know I'm getting into like some really specific things here. I'm just kind of like cherry picking different things that I think I would change about this website first before going and changing all of the media. But let's talk a little bit more about how you would go about changing this media anyway. So on the top, the first picture we have, like we changed the text, which is great, but we don't have there's an icy mountain. That's almost the opposite of surfing. So if we click on the 6 dots, you can see right here, again, if we go to style, again, you'll see that background, which has a lot of the same features here. It is fixed, which means as you scroll, it doesn't move, but the rest of the page does. And again, it also has a background overlay, making it a little darker. But if we want to change the image, we can just click on choose image and we would go and select a file to upload. So we can go and upload a file. So if we go to upload a file, I'm just going to click on this one and say open, and it will upload just the image I have, just some basic stock image of surfing. We will insert the media, and you'll see right there, it looks actually pretty good by default. We probably don't need nearly as much of a background overlay on this, and we could maybe adjust this around it and reposition it a little bit as well. But I'm actually going to go and change the background overlay first. Let's say that maybe instead we want it to be a little bit more blue, a little more purple. So let's go about that. Let's change the hue, something like that. And it doesn't need to be nearly that intense. We could dial this back a little bit so it's like that. So you still have a lot of contrast there. It's still really nice. You can see the text very easily, but it's not nearly as dark and kind of gloomy as it was before. And of course, you can change this to literally any color you want if you want it to be like obviously very depressing with that color there. Or, I think, blue makes a lot of sense right here, kind of accents the color of the wave. And we can even make that a little bit lighter yet. And again, you can still see the text very, very easily there. So that's how we'll go about changing the top. The next thing you can see is we have this little quote here. And you know what? Maybe we just don't like to quote at all. We can go and delete it, like I said, by clicking that little X. And let's add a different section in there instead. So if we want to add a section, we can click on the little 9 dots on the top right of this little Elementor panel. And we can go and actually add a new, so let's click on the plus. We're going to add a new section right here. And we can drag the widgets that we want, the little basic things. If we want text, if we want image, if we want text editor, videos, you have all these different options for things you can add in there. And so because I didn't want to quote, maybe instead I want to have 2 columns right here. So we can go and click on the little plus and choose how many columns we want. I will say, how about 2 columns? Sounds good to me. And in these 2 columns, I can add all these different elements. So clicking on the 9 dots, these are the elements we have available. And as you scroll down, you'll see some of them are limited to getting Elementor Pro, which I recommend doing. If you go to santrelmedia.com/Elementor, you can go and try out Elementor Pro, and it does have a lot of great things that, I mean, granted, it's not money you have to spend if you're on a budget in the beginning, but if you have a business and you can afford it, it is going to make things a lot easier and look a lot better and have more functionality, where you can add things like, a little animated headlines or a media carousel. Like, there's a lot of things that I think are really beneficial to using Elementor Pro. But again, for a lot of websites, like, you don't need it in the very beginning. So fundamentally, it's not required. So let's say instead we want to have like an image on the left side. So click and drag an image over here to the left side. And then maybe on the right side, we want to have like a little title, a little paragraph, and then a button below that. So let's go and add a title on the right side, a little heading. Below that, we can add the text editor, just a quick little paragraph. And then below that, we can add a button. So I don't mean to move too fast here. What we want to do is essentially click on the 9 dots, find what we want, click it, drag it until you see that thick blue bar, and drop it right there. Now, I don't want 2 headings, obviously, so if you right-click on this, you can actually go down and delete any item you want. So that's how you can add some basic stuff like this. And again, if we want to add this image right here, you can just click on the image. It shows up with the little editor on the left side, and we can choose image, and we can choose any image we want. Obviously, I'm going to just go with, honestly, just the same picture again, just so you guys get an idea of how I would go about doing this. And we can add our heading, our text, and our button. Now, I talked a little bit about headings already. If you click and if you just highlight that, or if you could do it over here as well, you can change it to whatever you want. I highly recommend that you don't change the font or the font size too much across your website. You really want to keep in mind that the more fonts you have, the slower it's going to be to load your website. But if you really wanted to change your font, the way you would do that is actually going into Style, clicking on typography, click on the little pencil, and you can choose whatever font you want. So we have a lot of different fonts here. If we want it to be like this one right here, obviously it doesn't mesh very well with the rest of our website. I would recommend choosing one font for the whole site. But if you really wanted something particular to have a different font, that is how you would do it. Similarly, you can change the color of the text. Right now it shows no color because it's going to be the default color. But if I click on this, I can actually change it to any color I want, maybe red, for example, and my text is now going to be that color. So let's go back to content and let's just say, read our blog on how to surf. And then here we can have a little paragraph. So if we click on this, we can change what this paragraph says. So we can say, we write blogs every week. And then below that, we have a button. Now, of course, buttons are a functional item on a website, which means that unlike just the static text we see everywhere else, we can actually have this link to a specific thing, which is not to say that text cannot link. It can. And if you click on it and you highlight a certain segment, so if I just say the word experience, I want it to link to something, I could click on the little chain icon right here, and it will add a link. And I could add this link to like google.com or amazon.com. You can literally whatever you want to link to, it's just a regular link and it'll take you to that website. So you want to make sure the link's not broken, it's an actual right link, but you can do that right there. Now, buttons, like I said, are a little bit more intuitive, they're a little bit easier to use, and I think they're more inviting to click on. So for here, obviously it says click here, so it's quite literally inviting you to click on it, but I'm going to say here, we can say read blog, and so when you click on text, that changes what it's going to show in the button. The link here, right now it shows a little hash, and the reason for this is because you can either have no hash, and that's going to just be whatever link you want. It could be like Amazon.com, for example. But if you have a hash there, it uses something called anchors, and I'll show you what anchors are in just a second. So let's just say we want this to go to like Google.com, whatever, HTTPS ://, and so that's what it's going to link to right now. But let's just say we wanted to add something called an anchor, which means that if you click on this, it'll scroll down to a specific part of this page or a different page on your website. So I'm actually going to show you Santrel Media's website right now. We do have anchors, so if you go and click on, for example, if you go to Website Builders, this part actually kind of needs to be redesigned. We've been working on this recently, but these right here are buttons that link to anchors. So if we go to Best E-commerce, it'll scroll down to the Best E-commerce section. So you can see if this is really common for anybody that makes like a recipe on a website or anything like that. It'll say like jump to recipe. It skips the whole blog and it goes right to the recipe at the bottom. And so buttons like that are really useful to go to like very long pages. It goes to a very specific segment. And so that's something that is very powerful, and I highly recommend using them. So let's talk about how do you actually use them. Well, if we go back to the 9 dots, sure enough, one of these down here is called an anchor. So if we go down here, you'll see anchor right there, menu anchor. And so if we scroll down and say, I just want to say maybe right above this section right here, we want an anchor to come down to this. What we would do is actually go and click on anchor, menu anchor, and drag it to, this is a 2 column, so it's kind of weird. We can just go to right there, something like that. And it shows that it's shifted down, but it won't actually be shifted down when you visit the real website. But we're going to have to create a name or an ID for this anchor. So we're just going to call this anchor 01, and I'm going to copy the name of that. And then later on, if we want this button right here, or let's say this button right here, we want it to go down to that right there. So we're going to paste this, so a little hash anchor 01, and when somebody clicks on this, it'll scroll down to that anchor. So I'm going to click update. And another thing, I know I forgot to say this, guys, but very, very important, as you're editing your website, always click update as frequently as possible, or go and save it as a draft so that you don't lose your work if suddenly your power goes out or your internet goes out or something happens and you lose a lot of your work. Always make sure you're saving. But another thing we want to see on the bottom, because we have update right here, I might as well mention some of the other things we have. So I showed you the history button. So if you want to undo something, you can go and just go back to any of the things that you did. So we like changed the button, we did things like that. You can go back and click on, go to this point in history, and it undoes all of this stuff right here. So that's a great feature right there. We also have responsive mode, which shows you essentially what it's like to actually use your website. I'm going to turn that back off. And we have navigator, we've got settings, and we have preview changes. Now, preview is going to not require you to publish your website, but rather show you the website as if it were published. And so if I click on learn more, you can see right there, it goes down to our anchor. So again, a great feature if you want to scroll down to a specific part of your page. And of course, this button right here, I think goes to Amazon, as you can see, or it goes to Google actually is what that one was linked to. I think the other one is Amazon. This might have been Amazon. Okay, so going back, we're making a lot of progress here. You can see that we have a website that's starting to be a little bit more laid out. We have a nice looking homepage right here, or a nice looking first photo. As you go down, we talk about our blog here. We have some really ugly text. Obviously, I wouldn't use it as red in real life. But as we go down, you can see we have some other templates, we have some other things down here, and we need to change all of this. But I'm not going to bore you guys with changing every individual thing. The whole point of this is to be a tutorial and show you as much as possible. So, you know, I'm not going to go and change every single photo on here because it does get kind of repetitive. But you'll notice that there are some really cool things that I do want to point out here. For example, these photos, it might be hard to see, but it looks like there is a shadow going around them. So if you wanted a photo that had a shadow or didn't have a shadow, we can click on the photo right here, and we can actually go into the style. And so style, first of all, they do have a border, as you can see here, and that's why it's slightly rounded. So let's just say we want this border, I'll accent a little more by going to 15. Or you know what, let's make it 150. That way you can really see. The borders are all the way around. And you know, every now and then, I find it useful to make a photo not have the same borders everywhere. And so anytime you see all of the numbers changing simultaneously, if that's frustrating, you can always just click on the little chain link icon on the right, and that will unlink the values. And you know, realistically, like the link is very convenient when you want, like most times you want them to all change together, but every now and then you want it to be, so let's link it, and let's just say we want it all to be like 50 is the radius, but you know what, maybe I want this bottom right corner to just be 0. So we can make a little boxy edge, or sorry, that was bottom left. Sometimes you want a photo to look a little bit like this. It makes it just look a little more stylish, a little bit different, kind of fun, depending on the mood of your website. So that's one thing. Again, I got a little distracted. I was going to show you guys how to remove that little shadow right there. But you can see right below the radius is actually the shadow. So we can say if we want the shadow right there, we can change like where it's positioned, if it's moved over to the left or the right more, if it's up and down a little more. So depending on where you want the shadow to be, you can also add a blur to the shadow, which is really nice if you want it to be more of a subtle shadow, looks a little more realistic, or if you want it to be like a hard shadow like this, I would generally add like at least a really slight blur on that if it's going to be farther away. And of course, you can choose where the spread is, like how big it is, which would kind of symbolize how far away it actually is. So you want to make it look realistic. And so I think this looks pretty good. But if you don't want it, you can always just click on the back to default, and it gets rid of the shadow altogether. Now, I do want the shadow, so I'm sure you guys can guess how I'm going to do this. If we go down to the history button, we can go back to the box shadow, click on the little bring me back to this point in history, And that's exactly what it does. So going down, the next thing we have right here is a pretty basic box. Again, very similar to what we saw before on all of the other ones, but let's talk about what else we could add in this little blank spot right here. Right now, it's doing absolutely nothing. It's just a little space. You can see this guy here, but let's say instead, maybe you wanted something else. Maybe you wanted a map in there. Maybe you wanted a form. Maybe you want literally anything else on here. So let's go and say that we want to add, you know what, maybe not here. Let's add it down here. Let's add another thing. Let's add a progress bar. And so maybe this is going to be like how far they're getting so far, what their skills are. It could be literally anything. A great example would be if you are making a portfolio, you would show like your skill level in different things. Obviously, everybody makes it like 90 to 95% on everything. But, if you want to show realistically, like, what your progress is on a project or keep your team updated, whatever it might be, there are obviously tons of uses for a progress bar. Click and drag that in. You can change what the title of it is. So this could be progress to fundraising goal. We can make this a percentage, or you can make it a dynamic tag as well. So it can actually be linked to specific things and it'll actually move based on different things, right? So a lot of websites will have something that it'll actually track how many likes you have on Facebook or how many views you have on YouTube, like whatever it might be. There are different APIs you can use in different plugins that can allow you to do different things with things like this. And so it could be a little bit more dynamic, but for the purposes of this, because we don't have Elementor Pro, we actually will instead just be statically defining this. So let's say progress to our fundraising goal, we're at like 75% right now. And of course, we don't want it to say web designer. We want this to say dollars. Oh, we want to say funds raised. That's what I meant to say. Funds raised, we're at 75% of our goal. So that's just a cool little thing right there. And of course, like I said, I made a full tutorial talking about how to use each of these individual things, but you can see a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory as long as you understand where a lot of the features are. So like I said, with this one, click on the pencil, you've got content, which is mostly going to be how it looks initially. You've got style, which is going to be a lot of the color, the spacing, things like the radius, things like that. And then, of course, you have advanced, which is going to be some more advanced spacing around there if you want it to not appear on mobile versus desktop, which, by the way, I haven't actually shown you that yet. If you want this to not show up on mobile, so say, for example, this just gets weirdly squished on a phone. You can hide it by going to responsive and hide it on mobile. And this is the way you'd have something that only shows up on desktop or only shows up on a tablet. And so a great way to see this is if we go to responsive mode right here, we can actually go and choose what device we want. So if we want to see this on like a phone, you can see that this is hashed out right now because it's not actually going to be there when you visit this on an actual phone. But it shows you that it does exist and it's something that is hidden on mobile. Now, if we turn this off, you'll see it is there on mobile. Realistically, this does not look bad on mobile, so I'm not going to hide it. But, maybe some text or some images like this right here doesn't really look that great on mobile. So maybe this entire section, I can click on that, go to advanced, and I might just hide this entire section on mobile because it cropped that guy out anyway. It doesn't really look that good. We can hide it on mobile, but it is still going to be there on desktop. All right, so I just realized my screen recorder was not showing you anything on the bottom. So I'm going to show you guys right now. Across the bottom, we can update right here. So this is going to save any of the work you've done. You can click on the little up icon and it shows you the save draft or save template. We can also go to preview changes. That's what's going to be the little eye icon right there, which shows you, like I said, going to be the full website there. We also have the responsive mode, which is going to enable this little thing across the top and allow you to switch between different devices, so to speak. Then we have the history button, which is going to be that little circle right there. We've got the navigator, which is going to essentially show you the hierarchy of what you have. So you've got the sections, like I said. We have all these different sections, and you can look at each one and hide them or show them. And with each one, they show you everything within there. So in case you're ever wondering, in this template, how is it really laid out? Well, you can look at this and say, all right, well, so this section right here has an intersection, it has a column, it has an image box, and a button in that column, and then the other column is looking like this. And so that's a good way to better understand what is going on there. So I can close out of that, I can close out of the responsive mode, and the last thing is going to be settings for Elementor, or just general settings for the home page right here. And these are the things that I showed you before that you can find from the regular non-Elementor edit page, which is going to be the featured image, the status of it, and of course, the title of this page. Now, once we're done with this page, like obviously right now I'm not done, but you get the general idea of how we'd go about adding things and changing the way they look. I showed you a lot of that. We can click on the little hamburger icon on the top left, and go back to exit to dashboard. And so this is going to take you to right here where we left off. And if we click on the WordPress icon, it takes you back to your actual dashboard right here. Now, we have a general idea of setting up one page. Other pages, like I said, you can edit them and really change them around. You can change the title of them. Quick edit is a great way to change the title, the date it was published, the slug, and the slug is going to be essentially how you access that. So right now, santrelsurfing.com/this slug, which is contact, would take you to the contact page. And so if you want it instead to be something like you want this to be, let's just say contact us or reserve, you can change the slug to reserve. And once you update this, then going to santrelsurfing.com/reserve would take you to this page here. Now, pages are obviously really important for a lot of websites. It's going to mean a lot, but one of the big benefits of using WordPress in the first place is that you're actually able to do a lot with blogging. You can have a massive library of blog posts. You can have all the different blogs organized in a very efficient way, very accessible throughout your website. And so setting up blog posts is going to be, for most people, a great way to start ranking higher on Google. So if we click on posts, you can see that right now it has one quick little post right here, but I'm going to close out of that. But if we want to add a new post, we can click on Add New. It's going to ask us to name the post or add a title. And before you start doing anything right here, what I would recommend is actually going up to Edit with Elementor, because once again, we can actually edit a lot of the blogs we have with the very similar tools to make our blog posts look very nice and consistent with the rest of our pages. But even better than that, we have some little starter templates right here with Elementor. So if we look at them, if we go to starter templates, so you can see we have three different options here. We have the pages, which is going to be a full page. And keep in mind, these are mostly tailored to being a page and not a post. So I usually don't use these starter templates. We can also go to patterns, and these are a little bit more fundamental, or wireframes, even more fundamental yet. But what I mean, like I said, I'm not usually one to use that. I make my own templates with Elementor Pro, and I'll talk about that in a little bit later on in this video. Usually what I would recommend doing is just going to Elementor, edit with Elementor, and this is going to give you a blank little canvas like this where you can make everything. And if you wanted, you can add some nice things in here that if you go to, again, the little templates, you can add some different little blocks that will still save you time by adding one block at a time like that, rather than having to add all three columns with the photo and the title and the text. You can just add individual blocks, and something like this, it might be easy to add that and nice to add that at the top of a blog. So I'm going to import the block, but you don't have to do that. You could easily just make this entirely from scratch, and without going through all of Elementor again, I want to show you some really important things that are specific to blog posts. Not everything's going to be on pages and posts, and so if you go right here, you can see going down, a lot of it looks the same. But there are some attributes that are going to make a lot more sense adding to a blog post. So for example, if we go down and expand the one titled Site, all the way down to the bottom, Site right there, it's going to allow you things like author and post navigation. So you can go to like the next post, for example. A table of contents would make a lot of sense. Like there's a lot of things that would just be really nice to add to a blog post that don't make nearly as much sense adding to something like a regular About Me page. And so that's why, looking down here, I just wanted to point these out. These are all locked right now because these are, I think you need Pro for them. You need to get Elementor Pro in order to use them. And so once again, once you start building your website out, once you start adding more blog posts and things like that, like I think it's nice to get Elementor Pro. They save you a lot of time with some really cool features, but being able to start out for free with Elementor, I think is also just as nice, really to get the ball rolling with things. So I'm going to go back and exit to dashboard. That's a general idea of how you'd make a post. Again, I'm not going to dive into that too much because for the most part, it's going to be very, very similar tools to what we just showed you with how to actually make a regular page. So other than that, let's continue on with some of the other important things on the left side. I gave you an overview of it before, but now that you have an idea of what the website's all about, how to edit the website, these things are going to make a little more sense and be a little bit more usable to you. So, of course, if we go to media, this is where you'll find all of your photos, your videos, and things like that. And so if you want to go and remove, say, all the stock footage that we don't need right now, we can go in here and do that all from right here. Or if you want to go and edit a photo, for some reason you just want it to be cropped a little different, you want to replace something about it or add some alt text to that, you can change all the metadata just from changing this right here. Additionally, pages, like I said, we already know all about that. Comments, we talked about that. But let's talk a little bit more about other plugins that we might want on here. So if you go down and click on plugins, I'm going to dismiss the Jetpack thing. Right now you can see that originally we had a lot of plugins. We got rid of all of them except for Jetpack, and now we have a couple as well. So we have WP Forms. That's the one that came back because we installed that template, the starter templates, and Elementor. Obviously, we installed those in the video, but there are some other plugins that I think are especially useful, and I want to point these out. In fact, I actually made a full video on my top 10 plugins that I recommend for WordPress. So I'll show you a couple right now, but if you want to see that full video, that will be linked down below. But something that I highly recommend would be something like WordFence. WordFence is one that can give you things like two-factor authentication to sign into your WordPress website. It can also be a firewall and prevent other people from hacking into this. It's just one of the great ways to start to really secure your actual website. So a lot of people just think like, yeah, I got a website, I'm ready to go. They don't realize how many people out there, if you have any meaningful traffic, would be really interested in stealing your website, either for holding it for ransom or just because they can then get the traffic that you're sending to that website. And there's ways to get around it, and you can fight it, and it's really annoying. It's a lot easier to just get a really good firewall. And again, this is one that's free to use, or you can pay some extra money and get some more advanced features on there. That's a really common thing across all of WordPress, the freemium model, where it's great, things are free, but if you want to get really advanced with them, you are going to have to pay for them. So let's go and activate WordFence. That's a really big one. Another really big one, if you plan on selling anything on your website, if you want to have an online store or just a quick little retail thing, a merch thing, whatever it might be, then you want to actually get the next one. Now let me just set up WordFence right here. I'm going to add my email. Okay, so the next one I want to show you is actually called WooCommerce. So WOO Commerce, as you can see right there. WooCommerce is a really, really popular one, probably the biggest one I would argue for doing any type of selling on, or any type of e-commerce on WordPress. So we can go and install this right now. And again, I have a full tutorial on how to use WooCommerce. That's way more than I want to show you in this video, but I just want to show you that this is a big plugin that I highly recommend. Even if you think there's a chance that you might sell something further on down the road, it might be nice to add it in and kind of have it integrated early on so that you get used to, how it works and where things are. Now, those are some plugins, and that's essentially how you would get the plugins. Actually, let's enable auto updates. Every now and then they add little recommendations. Something like your security, I think would make sense to automatically update. Otherwise, you have to manually check all the time. So with that being said, that's how you get new plugins. You could also upload a plugin if you already have a plugin that you somehow downloaded. An example of this would be like Divi is another way. It's kind of an alternative to Elementor. If you want to use Divi, you can download that and upload that as a theme. So not everything has to come from the little WordPress app store, so to speak. Now, other than that, if we go down to users, let's actually wait a second here. All right, so we activated WooCommerce, but I want to talk a little bit more about some other things on the left side. Let's go down to users, and this is a big one if you start to have a larger team. You have different roles you can have on WordPress, and these roles include things like an admin, but you want to be careful who you give admin access to because they could do anything to your website, essentially. You want to make sure that whoever it is actually responsible enough to be an administrator and you really trust them and don't have to worry about that. But if you just hire somebody to write for you, you can make them an author or an editor. Really, the difference there is going to be if they can upload media like photos. Additionally, you can make somebody like a moderator, and you have a lot of different roles right here. You have subscribers, you've got authors, editors, admins, like I said, a shop manager. Now that we have WooCommerce, shop manager makes sense. And so when you add different people, you really want to keep in mind what role you're going to give them. And like I said, I'll put a link in the description below that can really outline what the different roles are. I'm not just going to explain all of them right here, but a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory. And then below that, we have tools, not a whole lot there I want to talk about. And then we have settings, which I did touch on that a little bit earlier in the video, but I think it's really important right now to go through here and make sure that everything is exactly as we want, because a lot of your optimization for search engines is going to come from making sure the settings are set up right in the very beginning. It's very fundamental here. So we've got things like, of course, the language, the new default user role, things like that. The date format's going to be very important. We start the week on Monday, but of course you could change whatever you want with that. You can go down to reading, and this is going to say, like, when you show blog pages, show like 10 posts at once or something like that. We've got discussion, which is going to have a lot of different settings that are going to be about people that add comments. And this is a good way that you can kind of block some comments, but of course, a lot of the comment bots are smarter and they change the way it is, like the link is their name or something weird like that. So I don't really mess with that much. That's why we usually have something that can block a lot of those, that can filter that out, the anti-spam stuff. And of course, we've got media settings here, which again can really help to increase your load speed and things like that. But there are better ways of doing all of this. So while it is important to go through and check on all of these and make sure the privacy and all the settings are correct, you can actually go into, like I said, that video about the top 10 WordPress plugins will show you two things that I just mentioned right there. One of them is search engine optimization, or SEO, and one of the best plugins I recommend for that, I'll just tell you right now, it is Yoast SEO, and that's going to kind of walk you through a lot of the SEO tools you have in, it does a lot essentially for different posts and pages, and it makes it all embedded very easily. So you can go in there and see what's ranking well, what's not ranking well, what you can improve on. And so Yoast SEO is a huge one. Again, another free one that I highly, highly recommend. And then of course, the other one that I just mentioned right there was related to the size of photos. And this would actually be the Smush app. But we do have Jetpack on here, I believe, which can do a lot of what Smush does as well. And so going into Jetpack, because it came with this, I want to talk about this a little bit. We have some options for how to actually, do a lot of stuff on here. We've got security, we've got anti-spam stuff, like I said, we've got backup. Like you can connect a lot of things with Jetpack, and it really makes it like kind of a little hub here for how you can manage a lot of your WordPress stuff. So it's great, and you can obviously activate this to, like, here's an example right here. If we go and enable that, it is going to kind of smush a lot of our photos so that they have a much faster load speed. And a great tool that I recommend is actually if you go to pagespeed.web.dev, it's actually like Google, I think, owns this, and you can type in whatever the website is. So right now we could say Santrel surfing.com. And because we didn't optimize everything yet, you're going to analyze it, and it's probably going to tell us that our load speed on mobile and desktop are relatively low. And for reference, you probably want something ideally over 90, and it's on a scale of 1 to 100 for how fast the load speed is. But you really want to make sure that you're not somewhere in like the 50s or the 40s. Like you really want to make sure that it's as fast as possible. So right now, 65 on mobile is not really that great. That's because we have a lot of photos on there and a lot of unoptimized stuff. Desktop is a little bit faster. You can see 96 makes sense for desktop browsers. They're a little bit easier to manage that kind of stuff. And so that's great. We're already set with that. And like I said, Jetpack, just that simple little switch, really helps a lot. If we turn that off, I think you'll see that the number would drop pretty substantially. So that's a lot of what I wanted to show you in this video. Like I said, there's a lot of things that you kind of just click around and start getting used to them, and you can start learning a lot more about how to build your website as you go. But hopefully this gave you the fundamentals, everything you need to know to get started and get that template and get your website up and running, so that within the next hour or two, you can have a website that looks surprisingly good, even though you've never made a website before. And so if you appreciated this video, like I said, it would really mean a lot if you could go down and click the like button. And if you watch this far, you might as well subscribe as well if you're interested. We make a lot of other videos just like this, the top 10 WordPress plugins, different things like that, how to use Yoast, how to use WooCommerce, like a lot of different videos that are very related to this kind of stuff. So if you want to see those, definitely go down and click that subscribe button as well. So that's it. Good luck with your website. I hope you found this helpful. I'm Mike O'Brien from Santrel Media. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.